most admirable chasers you could possibly wish to see.
Welcome to the Race Hour podcast in association with Bet365, the home of the position payout. This is Not Long Now, the show where we take an ante-post look at next month's Cheltenham Festival. I'm Rory Jiwani. With me are Cheltenham Festival winning jockey Paddy Aspell, Bet365 racing PR legend Pat Cooney, and great to welcome racing analyst Lee Hayes onto the panel. Now, I'm sure you'll know by now that Bet365 are non-runner, no bet for all 28 races at this year's festival. And that could come in useful for the next half hour or so, because today we're looking at the handicaps. Now, the entries were announced yesterday. Perhaps the big story, the absence of the Wool Park, who Gary Connolly mentioned last week. He was very prominent in the betting for the National Hunt Chase and the Kim Muir, but won't be travelling over. We'll find out shortly if that's affected some of the panel's thoughts. Guys, I'm going to ask you for some fancies in a bit, but first I'm going to go to you, Pat. Has anything been particularly well backed in the handicaps before or since yesterday's entries came out?
Well, not really, Rory. I mean, we got them all at midday onward yesterday, so it was just a case of ploughing through every handicap and taking out horses that weren't entered and adding those that had joined in the party. So we were very much just putting the names to the races and having rough sort of ballpark figures as to what prices they should be. So it's been relatively quiet, but I think the fireworks will start next Tuesday onwards, because that's when the handicap weights come out. So what we're dealing with at the moment are the entries, but the weights come out next Tuesday, and that'll be very interesting to see how much tax these Irish horses have to pay from the English handicappers. So relatively quiet at the moment. It's been interesting in ploughing through them, though. You're looking for the horses with just the one single entry to imply that's the trainer's target and they mean business there. But I think a lot of these trainers are playing it safe. They're entered on the Tuesday and on the Friday. So very much a case of a weather watch at the moment. But what I would say, take the non-runner, no bet. You might have guessed which race the horse is going to run in, but we're at that twilight stage now. You could always have a setback between now and the festival. So you might have picked the right race and you might want the bigger price, but the safe thing there is definitely take the non-runner, no bet.
Absolutely. Now, we're going to start by looking at handicap chasers. As mentioned, plenty of races and horses. We're not going to keep you all day, so I'm going to limit you to two horses apiece. We'll start with you, Paddy. Your two handicap chasers to follow at the festival, and why?
Oh, it took me a fair while to narrow it down to two, Rory. I'll be honest. Luckily, there was an awful lot to go at, but I would say I've got one cliff horse and one horse that I've been very, very fond of, and he's done me a few turns. The cliff horse, first of all, is a horse who I think should possibly have a Cheltenham Festival win on his CV already in the Martin Pipe, and that's Waterford Whispers. Because in that race in particular, he had plenty of weight that day. And obviously, I remember being at the meeting and he just locked on a little bit, passing the stands. You're heading out on the final circuit, and he just over raced, but he still finished in the money and wasn't beaten all that far. He's been a little bit of a slow burner, I think it's fair to say, over fences, but he just looks like he's edging to landing a big pot, this fella. He might not be on many people's radars, and he's just not a superstar. Sorry, this is in the Jack Richards as well, I should say, Waterford Whispers. But the thing I would definitely like to add as well, that this is a horse coming from a yard which kept their powder dry over the DRF, and that's Henry de Bromhead. So I'm hoping that pays dividends. He is not one to have absolute maximum faith in, but for me, he's just edging that little bit closer to landing a big pot. And I do think he's previously left one behind him. Just hoping he might not do the same this time.
Okay, before you go on to your second one, I'm going to come in because, Lee, I think you're very keen on Waterford Whispers as well.
Yeah, it might not be on many people's radars, Rory, but he's on 2 out of the 3 of the paddock.
Exactly. a cliff horse for me as well, Paddy. I was actually at Fairyhouse a couple of years ago on the Royal Bond meeting where he won a very, very good novice hurdle that day, beating Ante who's now rated 150, and the Galway Plate winner, Western Falls, now rated 157. As you said, then came second in the Mountain Pike. Hasn't seemed to take to chasing. I think everybody expected him to be a JP handicap plot, and every time he's been backed, he's not delivered. The last time out of the DRF, he came third in that big handicap chase. Probably did best of those that were up with the pace, I thought, that day. He's actually entered in that Jack Richards and in the Plate and in the Kim Muir. Kim Muir would be a massive step up for it, but who knows? You know, Henry Bromhead knows what he's doing, but I'd like to see him in either Jack Richards or the Plate. I think he'd go well in either. The Jack Richards could have a lot of hidden novices in there, I suppose. So either of those two, I think he's 12's non-runner no bet with Bet365 for both of those races. I agree with Paddy. He's a cliff horse. I'll be backing him wherever he goes. Let's see where he ends up, and I think 12's is a fair price. So two of the panel liking Waterford Whispers. Back to you, Paddy. We've had your cliff horse. Who's your other one?
Well, my other horse is a horse I'm very, very fond of, and I think although he was pretty good over hurdles, he is without a doubt improved for jumping a fence. Now, this race, the Irish don't win it. I'm pretty sure you'll know straight away which one I'm talking about, and that is on the Tuesday, the Ultima. It's a race that always tends to stay at home, and I was with Tom Lacey's Montregard here because I think he has improved for jumping a fence, but again, he's improved for having a little bit of headgear on as well. Stan Shepherd normally does the ride. Now, whether he couldn't do the weight last time or possibly he was required elsewhere on the day, Johnny Burke gave him an absolute peach to get his head back in front again the other day. He's obviously going to have more on his plate, and he's going to have to improve again in such deep water as the Ultimate. But he's a good, strong traveller, this fella, since the addition of the headgear. And one thing that I do like about him as well, that at the deck, when it is required, he's a good finder off the bridle era. Obviously, he's going to have a good pace to aim at, but more importantly, Rory, it's all about the postcode and the country he's trained in. That's probably the biggest chance here for Montregard. So if he does take his chance, could be another JP winner on the card.
Yeah, those green and gold colours are going to feature quite prominently, I fancy. But yeah, Montregard there in the Ultima, 14-1 with Bet365 non-runner, no bet. Lee, we've had one of your picks already, Waterford Whispers. Tell us your second chaser you're interested in at the festival.
Well, this year I was at Fairyhouse again for the Royal Bago every year with the Aberdeen lads. I was there again this year. On the Saturday, a horse called Joystick ran in one of the opening races, a beginner's chase. I got a little word that it might be worth an each way bet. It was decent odds. It got backed in just before the off. And as you'll know, in some of these Irish beginners chases and novice hurdles, there's certain horses that don't want to be up there with the leaders, some big names in there. This was up against Jimmy DeSoy, the Big Westerner, and Jacob's Ladder, all three very good horses. But it went with them for a long, long way over probably an adequate trip. Jumped really well, just got a little bit outpaced over that short trip. Stepped up a couple of runs later to 3 miles last time out at Navan, and it won on soft heavy, beating some really good horses, including Slade Steel, rated 145 at the minute by 2.5 lengths. Got headed that day and it battled back. It won a 2 mile 4 heavy ground bumper. It's beat Honesty Policy in a maiden hurdle. So it all adds up to a stamina-laden horse, one that's looking for an extra trip. It's centred in the National Hunt Chase, the old 4-miler as we used to call it. The problem is that Navan run might just put him a bit too high in the weights. It's obviously a 0-145 limited handicap these days is the National Hunt Chase. So we need a bit of luck to get in, but that dim a strong preference because I think stamina is the key with this horse. It's entered in the Jack Richards as well. That's a mile shorter. So if it doesn't get in the National Hunt Chase, it could go there. I guess if it came up testing, that might be an option. It's also in the Brown Advisory, but I can't see it being competitive there. So in the National Hunt Chase, 8-1 non-runner no bet with Bet365, 10-1 anti-post. My selection is Joystick.
Thank you very much, Lee. Yeah, it was a good win at Navan last time out for Joystick in the Richie colours for Willie Mullins. Over to you, Pat. Your two handicap chasers for the festival.
Okay, I'm going to the Trust the Trader plate, and my one is Madara, trained by Dan Skelton. And this horse actually won at Leopardstown in Ireland in 2024, won a good prize there for Sophie Leach, now trained by Dan Skelton, and was a real eye-catcher at Kempton last time out. Just think back to Langadang performances in the build up to the festival. This has got a very similar modus operandi, a real eye catcher running on late and powering up the running. So I just get the feeling that this horse is back in business. He has been lightly raced, but there has been good money around for him in the last week or so. So he comes here all guns blazing, and I expect him to run a really big race. The other one I'm going to go for is in the Grand Annual, and that's Van der Poel. I think you've got to have a Ben Pauling horse the way his stable are going. Of course, he had the first three winners at Ascot last Saturday. And Van der Poel, he's really come of age recently. He's won at Ascot, Sandown, and he's shown a real bright turn of foot. So he travels and he quickens, and I've got probably the hottest yard in the business at the moment on my side. So Madara from the eye-catching point of view, and Van der Poel from the stable form.
Van der Poel for Ben Pauling. Paddy, any view on that one? Grand Annual's a tough one, and he's up over a stone in his last two races.
Yeah, certainly is, but deservedly so. I think Rory's a horse on a seriously upward curve. I mean, Ben Pauling is going to have such a strong hand, isn't he, going to the 4 days in the middle of March? But that horse is going to deserve his place, and I think, look, if you want to have a go at both of them, both Madara and the Ben Pauling horse, I think you'd have to be pretty quick on the old button there. I don't think you're going to have an awful lot of juice left in either prices, simply because one's a fantastic target trainer and the other one is just really in fashion at the minute, isn't he, Ben Pauling? And so people are going to be following plenty of those horses in.
Certainly will. We'll move on to the handicap hurdles. I reckon these are the toughest puzzles of all to solve at Cheltenham. It's these are minefields, but hopefully we've got some good selections coming up. Lee, we'll start with you this time. Your two handicap hurdles to follow.
Yeah, handicap hurdles are tough at the best of times, but especially when you don't know the declarations. Most of them are 3 or 4 entries, and we don't know what the ground's going to be. I think there were 733 entries yesterday altogether, so I've not actually been to bed last night. I stayed up going through every single one of them, and I've come up with 2. In the Fred Winter, I'd be really interested to see what Mark Mons 2 gets next week if she does then go for the Fred Winter. She's a great horse. She beat Narcisco Haas at Fairyhouse, and then obviously he reversed the form. So I'd be interested to see that, but I'm not sure she'll go there. So in that race, I've gone for Munsif. This is a Charles Burns horse. It was rated 93 on the flat with Roger Varian. It won off 87 over a mile and a half. Actually was 3 out of 6 on the flat, and then it changed hands for 120,000 guineas into Charles Burns Yard. And it ran in what has now become called the Fred Winter Nash Trial, I think. I think 4 of the last 7 winners have ran in that race, not necessarily won it. That includes Jazzy Matti, Brazil, Aramax, and Band of Outlaws. So it ran in that. It came 3rd. Watched that race back actually last night. It was really keen at the start, but it jumped and travelled pretty well. And considering how keen it was, and it was actually over shorter than 2 miles, it actually finished okay. Just got outpaced. So maybe that extra furlong at Cheltenham should help. But ultimately, let's face it, it's a Charles Burns handicapper. So it'll have been doing a job that day. I'm slightly worried about the mark. He probably needs 120 plus to get in. But he beat Genealogy. And Genealogy, when run at Ascot, that actually got a BHA performance figure of 120. So I'm hoping that all adds up to a mark that gets it into the Fred Winter. We're looking at 10 to 1 non-runner no bet, 12 to 1 anti-post, we bet 365. So my first selection is Munsif in the Fred Winter.
Yeah, Pat, Charles Burns handicapper, is this one that has you guys running for the hills?
Yeah, he's a trainer you have to take very seriously. He did pull quite hard when he first went hurdling, but it seems to have worked the oracle. He's going to come here with a big ring round his name, isn't he? I think Charles has got a few other runners in the handicaps as well that I was paying close attention to. But he's one you very much take seriously. You just know his best days are in front of him. So yeah, I can see wisdom in that.
And Paddy, I mean, again, we've talked about this being a puzzle, but I suppose it all depends what Mark mark the horse gets, doesn't it?
Yeah, we're dealing at the minute with RPRs, and you've obviously got the English penalty as well, haven't we, for the Irish horses coming over? So yeah, there's plenty of guesswork involved, but that's the good part of it as well, isn't it?
It is. It's all part of the fun. Lee, your second handicap hurdler for the festival.
I think it's good to have a horse that's got festival form. I've already had one JP horse that's got festival form in Waterford Whisters. Here's another. In the county hurdle, I'm going to go for Put Your Hands Together, last year's Fred Winter winner. Won that off 130. Won it pretty easily if you watch it back, and absolutely powered up that Cheltenham Hill. It's actually rated 92 on the flat. It won the Irish Cesarovich last year. Last time out at Fairy House, I was there in case I didn't mention it. It was badly hampered twice, actually. Hampered coming around the bend and then hampered by a bad fall at the last. That was at our boy Charlie. Had in hands for me that day. 5-year-olds have won 5 out of the last 12 runnings of the county. Now, again, talking about marks, it's on 144 now. Definitely going to get some tax, you would imagine, from the UK handicapper. Could that be a little bit high? Has been one off higher than that, but it's probably a bit high for the last few run-ins. What I like about it, it's won 3 big field races and come second in another, so it should really be suited by this county hurdle. It's usually a bit of a, they go hell for leather, something comes late, and that suits this running style for this one. Put Your Hands Together. It's won on good to soft and soft, so it should handle most ground. I don't think it won it really heavy, but it should handle most ground. It's also in the Coral Cup, but all its runs have been around 2 miles. And I read Joseph O'Brien's stable tour, and he said, won the Fred Winter last year, we're aiming to run him in a county hurdle this year. Still a young horse without big mileage, so hopefully find some improvement. Now, O'Brien is a very shrewd trainer. He's not won a county hurdle yet, and we know you probably need to be on a Skelton or Mullins Hall for the county hurdle, horse, should I say. But I'm hoping that changes this year. 16-1, non-runner no bet. 20-1 anti-post with bet 365. I think that's a decent each way bet on Put Your Hands Together for the county hurdle.
Yeah, that's quite an attractive price there. 16's non-runner no bet. I can't help thinking. I mean, he looked really well in for the Irish Cesarovich based on his hurdles rating. Is this 2 miles going to be long enough though? Because like the Cesarovich is 2 miles and a furlong on the flat, so you'd kind of think he'd get further. So, I mean, he has said, obviously, Jason O'Brien has said the county hurdle, but I'm just worried, and he's a young horse as well. Might the trip be a little bit sharp?
Maybe. I mean, it's be on the new course, won't it? Which is a bit more stamina test. So yeah, I think he'll be fine. I mean, maybe he'll go Coral Cup, but O'Brien has pinpointed the county hurdle. Yeah, I'm pretty confident.
Yeah, 16 is a working man's price. Pat, is that a horse you've seen some interest in? You'd think, given all the credentials, it's one to. I'm surprised he's so big.
Yeah, he's one very much to pay attention to. And put it this way, if the right money comes, and it usually comes with about half an hour to go before the off, then it's certainly one to get with. He's one of endless possibilities in the race, but he's got that right type of profile. I think though the connections, they don't tend to play their hand until on the day, so just keep an eye on him, just track him in the market.
Yeah, Paddy, put your hands together there in the green and gold, of course. A horse you're interested in as well?
Oh, absolutely. And obviously, festival form is a huge tick in the box. He was a little bit of a plot horse, wasn't he? But we're going to have so many plot horses in the likes of your Fred Winters and whatnot. And I mean, I think you've got to maybe sort of, I won't say turn a blind eye to the recent form of certain horses like that, because come the middle of March, they tend to like the bit of sun on their back and find a bit of form from somewhere, don't they?
They do indeed. Paddy, why don't you give us your 2 handicap hurdlers for Cheltenham?
Well, again, unfortunately, Rory, I've thrown a dart at the Fred Winter. This one would have possibly come onto a few radars. I think it's fair to say. Lee is absolutely bang on about that Naas race. This is the Fred Winter trial, without a doubt, that Naas race. And I think Saratoga went into plenty of notebooks, but there's no juice left in Saratoga now, simply, because of who he's trained by and who he's owned by. But Selma Deveri, I think, has been, when you looked at her form going into the DRF, it was pretty underwhelming. She looked reasonably ordinary on the level in France. But as we've seen in the last 2 or 3 DRFs with Willie Mullins, especially with these fillies, they tend to turn up, make their debut for the Mullins team at the DRF with the first time hood on, as Selma Deveri did. And unfortunately for her, she bumped into Narciso Has, a horse really on an upward curve. Now, she did get an RPR of 129 off the back of that. So you're probably looking at a fairly lofty handicap mark for her next week. But interesting, the Townend chose to ride her at the DRF. They knew that she was better maybe than her form was letting on. But I think you've got to keep your eyes peeled for when those weights do come out to see what she gets. But we're going to have so many lurkers in a Fred Winter like this. You're going to need an awful lot of luck in running. But yeah, a reasonable handicap mark would be a bit of a leg up also.
Lee, I was just going to get your thoughts on Selma Deveri about that trial, the Fred Winter trial, as you called it.
Selma Deveri ran a great race, didn't she, at DRF? Coming to that last hurdle, jumped it really well. Obviously didn't quite get to Narciso Has, but no shame in that. Will they go Fred Winter? Will they go Triumph? I think there's still a question mark over that. But if she went to the Fred Winter, then that she'd have a massive chance, wouldn't she?
I think she would. Paddy, back to you for your second handicap hurdler.
Another horse, I would say, missed out narrowly at the DRF. I think he went off very short in the end. I think he was there with every chance, and he ran his race. And Lee has already mentioned the Fred Winter horse for the Charles Byrne team. I'm hoping to go out on a winner in the nightcap, Rory, in the boys' race, the Martin Pipe. And I started a joke. Obviously, there was plenty of talk. It was just that opening mark looked so tempting at the DRF of 126. Sean Bowen was booked for the ride. The way he travelled through the race, I mean, I thought we were good to go, and just thought he was a little bit. He wasn't green from the back of the last necessarily, but I think that Bowen's on Fire, who beat him, that they just had that little bit more know-how and knowledge, and he was beaten possibly by that on the day. So he's going to be going there a bit more experienced, and because it's probably going to be as competitive, if not a more competitive race than the one he tackled at the DRF, there might still be a little bit of juice about his price. And obviously, again, see what what sort of tax the English handicapper gives. But he's a horse with extremely low mileage in handicaps, and yeah, I'd like another dabble at him in the Martin Pipe and see if we could go out in the nightcap on a winner.
Yeah, I started a joke at 12-1. I can see Pat's got a grin on his face because I think you like something else in the Martin Pipe. Is that right?
No, I had started a joke. He was very nearly made my shortlist, but I just wasn't sure where he was going to go. But he's definitely a horse of potential. Of course, he ran in the bumper here at the festival last year after on the back of one run, so he's clearly well regarded by connections. But you just got to land on the right race. Maybe the right way to go is just back him, win every race he's entered. You're going to get your money back on those he doesn't, and he'll probably start a bit less than the ones that he does. So there'll be value there, that's for sure.
Yeah, we'll move over to you now, Pat. Your 2 handicap hurdlers at the festival. I think you might be going for the home team for one of them.
Yeah, I'm going to start with the county hurdle. Bit of recency bias here. I'm going to go for Chrismar of Nikki Henderson, who actually won at Market Raisin on Tuesday. Now, this is a mare. She's just had the 3 novice hurdles over here. She's won 2. She got beat a nose in the other. She should have won. And she's just gone for races where the handicapper can't do much about her, really. He can't put her up because she's running and winning in races that she should be doing. So she comes here, I think, probably going to be a very well handicapped horse. There's going to be a great deal of hype about her as well, because this is probably her target, really. She should get a nice, attractive weight, owned by JP McManus. And Nikki Henderson was probably targeted this race with her. So I can imagine she'll be in all the rage on the day in the county hurdle. So my second one, I won't go too deep into this one because I know Lee will expand a lot further on it. But the Coral Cup Indiva Blue of Ollie Murphy. I'm surprised this horse is an 8-year-old. He's only ever run 7 times in his career, so he must be he might be pretty fragile at home. But he was second to Tutti Quanti. That looks good order, doesn't it? At Newbury at the start of the season, not many would get close to him round Newbury. And then he stepped up to a similar trip over 2.5-ish at Aintree over Christmas. He won very handily, and he's been kept fresh for this. So Lee will have more to say about him, but hopefully great minds think alike.
Yeah, on Krishma, I mean, it seems like the county, you only win it if you're Irish or your trainer's Dan Skelton. So Nicky Anderson would have to be bucking a bit of a trend there. Paddy, any thoughts on the county hurdle?
Yeah, it's as you would expect, uber competitive. But it is a race which is, I think it's fair to say it's gone both sides of the water, the county. It's almost gotten to the stage where it's a little bit like the Fred Winter, Rory. You're going to have so many lurkers in there, but it's a very, very rough race, the county hurdle. One of the roughest races, I would say, of the festival. But I think, again, it's a race where you'd have to be guided by the market, because obviously horses are going to be divided up in the run up to the festival, not so much avoiding each other, but races can change complexion, can't they? And obviously the markets then have to adjust themselves accordingly. But yeah, again, another of the exciting ones, but you do need an awful lot of luck in running. Very, very rough race.
Yep, very much so. Just to round things off before we look at the upcoming weekend's action, I'm going to ask you for your festival handicap nap and something at a bigger price, maybe 20 to 1 or bigger. Actually, before we do that, because I know what your one is, Lee, and Pat touched upon it, can you give us your case for Indiva Bleu in the Coral Cup, Lee?
Yeah, the first thing that attracted me to it was I saw Ollie Murphy saying in his recent stable talk, he said he'll go straight for the Coral Cup and he's our best chance of the week. And he finished by saying, I really believe in him. So that made me look into it. That form behind Tutti Quanti, I mean, Tutti Quanti is now rated 151. It got £4, yeah, and it would beat 3 lengths, but it's only rated 138 itself. It then absolutely smashed a pretty decent field over 2.5 miles last time out at Aintree, recording its best RPI yet. It's won on good to soft and it's won on heavy, so I'm not too concerned how the ground comes up. In terms of trends, it's 7 years old and 10 of the last 12 winners have been 6, 7 or 8. It's actually closer related even to Alpha Off, so a bit of Cheltenham Festival pedigree in there as well. So yeah, 10 to 1 non-runner no bet. You can get 40s if you want to be confident on Ante post. We bet 365. Obviously, Ollie Murphy's not had a festival winner yet. That's the thing. But me and Pat were talking off air. He's got to have one at some time. He's one of the top traders in the country. So yeah, I think that's a very strong nap.
So that's your nap, Lee. What's your long shot at a big price?
I thought I'd just go long. I thought I'd swing for the fences on this one. Sonny Bill in either the Coral Cup or the Martin Pipe. Willie Mullins' horse actually ended up as Paul Towner's choice in the Fred Winter last year. Went off 7 to 1, so shortest price for a big field race. Up there for a long way, actually. Jumped and ran pretty well, but then just got outpaced towards the end. It's ran in a lot of good races and ran well in a lot of good races. And it ran in a really competitive listed handicap hurdle at the DRF. First run for nearly a year. Again, up there for a long way. Travelled and jumped really well. Either got outpaced, a combination of outpaced and maybe needing a run after a year off. All its runs so far have been over 2 miles, but it does look to be bred to stay further. So I'm hoping a step up in trip will bring out some improvement. It's rated 137 in Ireland, so decent weight even with it. And it's not one that's high in the profile that's probably going to get a big tax, I don't think. Willie's won this twice in the last 8 years. One was 16 to 1, one was 20 to 1. And most importantly, absolutely no mention of it on any Willie Mullins stable tour. So I think that's a big sign. So in Coral, it's entered in the county, but I'm hoping Coral or Martin Pipe. It's 33s, non-runner bet, 50s anti-post for the Martin Pipe, and it's 40s, no bet, and 66 anti-post for the Coral with Bet365. I've gone for the Coral. I hope I'm right, but either of those two races at a big price, worth an each way bet.
Yeah, you can be sure with Willie Mullins being the trainer on the day, you'll go off quite a bit shorter. Over to you, Paddy. Your nap in the handicaps and your long shot.
Well, because Selma the Vary has obviously got other options, I would think that connections are going to have their mind made up with what the handicapper does, really. Whether they're going to go into open company or contest handicap. So with that, I will leave her alone and I will follow in the Charles Byrne horse, because although I did my money at the DRF, I think we got we got a fair bounce of the ball there. I thought we were just maybe out experienced on the day, so I think there's still wiggle room in a start and joking very lightly raced and couldn't be trained by a shrewder man. And yeah, hopefully we can go out on a winner in the nightcap. But I would certainly like a bit more juice in the price than what we ended up getting at Leopardstown.
And your long shot for the festival, Paddy, at a big price?
Well, I've gone for an older boy who ran an absolute screamer just the other day. And I mean, you could even go each way with him. And that was in the Johnny Henderson, the 10-year-old Liberty Hunter, because he's always ridden exactly the same. He's ridden to run well. So he's going to be ridden cold. Don't expect to be seen and played late in the day, but he's a very good jumper. He's a real good traveller, and he'll just mooch his way through very slowly and be picking up the pieces. Chances are he's going to have enough weight here that for win purposes, it's probably a stretch with Liberty Hunter, but he's such a consistent horse to hit the frame. And because he is going to have his fair share of weight, you're going to get a decent each way price about Liberty Hunter, but he's not getting any younger and he's going to have to give age away to an awful lot of his rivals, but it's very hard to pick holes in him. He's a pretty solid horse.
Yeah, that's Liberty Hunter for Evan Williams, 16-1 non-runner no bet for the Grand Annual. Over to you finally, Pat, your nap in the handicaps and your long shot.
Yeah, I'll go to the Martin Pipe, and it's the Skeleton Sauce Apai de Nom. And it's also, he's no secret, really. He's had 6 runs already. He looks thoroughly exposed, but he stepped up to 3 miles last time at Newbury, and he absolutely dotted up. And I was at home watching the race, and I was thinking, God, how much would you put this horse up? Playing handicapper. And I was surprised to find out he only went up £5 for the win. So I thought he's an attractively handicapped horse. He gets, let's say, he gets to 3 miles. He'll get this 2 miles, 4.5 well. So a strong run race will be no barrier to him. And I just noticed how connections were quick to say, yep, Martin Pipe next for him. So that was his target. So it's not normally my style to go for an exposed one, but I just can't help thinking, you should have gone up more than 5 for winning that race. You could have easily had a 9 or a £10 rise. So yes, it's a hugely competitive race, but I'm heartened by the fact his last run was his best run. So he'd be my nap at prices. The long shot, I'm going to go for a Lucinda Russell horse. We talked about Ben Pauling being in form. Lucinda not quite there at the moment. There was a flutter the other day but it didn't quite materialise. But I like a horse called King of Answers, who's got 2 engagements, the National Hunt Chase and maybe the Ultimar. Now, I quite like this horse. He came down to Windsor back in January, but he didn't like the track at all. It was a very narrow track for him, and all he does is gallop. Well, again, touching on recent bias, he won at Kelso the other day, and that was much more like it. He stays all day. Even at Windsor, he was noted running on up the running. So he just wants to thorough test the stamina. He'll probably get that. Hopefully he'll go for the National Hunt Chase. And he might just go under the radar, really, given how stable the form is. But much can change with trainers' form. We're talking about it here at the end of this month. In 2 weeks' time, 3 weeks' time, the stable could be really firing. So I quite like King of Answers. I'm hoping he goes for the National Hunt Chase.
Yeah, King of Answers. You say National Hunt Chase, but of course we know Lucinda Russell, great record in the Ultima in recent years. But King of Answers, just trying to see the price there for the 14 to 1 for the National Hunt Chase, 16 to 1 for the Ultima. Okay, so that's our look at the handicaps. We'll move on to this weekend coming up. We've got a trio of grade 2s at Kempton. We've got the Adonis, where we might see a Triumph Hurdle contender. We've got the Pendle Novices Chase and the Dovecote Novices Hurdle. It's Ida Chase Day at Newcastle. There's a Pertemps qualifier, 10th Hurdle qualifier at Chepstow. We've got the Grade 3 Bobby Joe Chase at Fairyhouse. Sunday, Grade 3 2-mile Chase at Naas. And there's the Grade 2 National Spirit Hurdle at Fontwell. So even though we're counting down to Cheltenham, still some decent pots up for grabs. Pat, much money ahead of the weekend? And what do you like? And where will you be?
Yeah, I'm off to Kempton. Hopefully we'll get some final Cheltenham clues. But the big handicap there is the Ladbroke Trophy. We'll always know it in old money as the Racing Post Trophy, and a big illustrious name of on the cup in previous years. But a lively market. Katati Dory won it last year off a much lower mark, but that's 5 to 1 favourite as things stand at the moment. Plenty of horses being backed. I notice Emmett Mullins has got one called Chance, another one who won over the course and distance earlier on in the season. That's been jockeyed up to run. One we have laid is Deep Cave of Christian Williams. So it is that type of a race. It's going to be 5 to 1 the field and plenty of money knocking around. As for the Ida at Newcastle, well, that's 4 miles, 1.5 on very soft ground. And it does look as though Mr. Van Gogh is going to run. So he'll carry 12 stone. He's a very popular horse. He was poor last time he ran, mind you. But him there on 12 stone, there's going to be lots and lots of horses there on that 10 stone 4 and lower mark. And we've got 2 previous winners, Knockernor and Angler's Crag. They're both here in the race as well. Again, a real vibrant market. The Wind Machine, a work in progress, has probably been our best backed horse at the moment of Nick Gifford. So he's travelling up a long way. And it's funny, he definitely wants it soft. So a lot of these horses, they go on soft, but they want it even softer. So 2 tremendous betting heats. And, they're only an hour apart from each other. So good luck if you land the double.
Yeah. Anything you fancy, Pat, over the weekend?
I fancy one actually at Chepstow, where Jeremy Scott's got one. We know him, of course, as Golden Ace. It's Another Fine Mess, the name of the horse is. And there's had 2 recent wins. And I think from a handicapping point of view, just watching his win last time out, again, I was surprised that only went up £5 for the win. I thought it was an emphatic performance, and it looks like a horse that's going places. So I might skip the 2 impossible handicaps and just aim for the 217 at Chepstow. Another Fine Mess.
There we go. Paddy, anything you're particularly interested in this weekend?
Well, Pat mentioned the Eider. The fact that Mr. Van Gogh is jocked up to run means he's going to have to give £6 plus away to the whole field here, and which is going to take a fair bit of doing. And you just look at Nick Gifford's horse there, who he's so well named, a work in progress, 10 stone 4 for him. Very, very exciting horse. But as you will know, Rory, I'm going to go much lower key earlier on the card at Newcastle. But a winner's a winner, isn't it? And as a horse who caught my eye a little bit last time, it's one of these stable switchers, the JP McManus horses. When they move to Ben Haslam, he tends to send the older, maybe badly handicapped ones to Ben Haslam, and they tend to wait their turn, and they generally always win. Expelliarmus, I won't say is that one in the 135 at Newcastle, because you're only a 6-year-old, this mare, and she's not actually had that many goes, but ran well at Sedgefield last time. The mark has dropped to 90 for Saturday. Not currently jocked up, but generally Ben Haslam's aren't. But that was an encouraging effort at Sedgefield 27 days ago. But more importantly, it's that number next to her name now, 9-0. I think is much, much more suitable for Expelliarmus. Got a nice racing weight there on Saturday, and I think the mare could beat the boys.
Yeah, there's one from left field there for Paddy. Lee, what's your pick for the weekend?
Had enough going over 733 entries for Cheltenham, Rory, without having a pick, but something to look out for. We talked about the County Hurdle. The last 10 of the last 12 have gone to either Willie Mullins or Dan Skelton. Interestingly, a Willie Mullins horse has moved to Dan Skelton. It's entered in the Handicap Hurdle at Kempton, the 110 on Saturday. It's called Charles. ran in the Triumph Hurdle last year. It's moved. It's going to be his first run for Dan Skelton. It's entered in the county, a couple of other races as well, but it's entered into the county. I saw a comment from Dan yesterday saying, see how it goes on Saturday, and then we might go to the county with it. So, you know, I'm looking for a Skelton or a Mullins horse for the county. This is both, effectively. See how it goes in the 110 at Kempton on Saturday, and then maybe it goes for the county. And it's currently 40-1 non-runner no bet for the county. So I'm linking the weekend to the Cheltenham Festival there. The Bobby Joe over at Fairy House. Nick Rocket won it last year before winning the Grand National. I wonder whether Lecky Watson might be able to do the same. It's entered in the Bobby Joe. It's only been given the £2 tax by the UK Handicap when the weights came out yesterday, so that's not too bad. It's got off reasonably well there. And then there's 3 handicap hurdles, my forte at Fairy House. I love a local trainer. Carl Thornton trains in the car park, I think, at Fairy House. He's that close to the course. And he's got, in the 238, he's got Shanro Act going for the hat trick. It's won a hurdle and a chase, and it's back at Fairy House in the 238. So no declarations yet, no prices, but if you push me for one, Shanro Act.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Well, that's it for Not Long Now in association with Bet365, the home of the position payout and non-runner no bet for the Cheltenham Festival. My thanks to Paddy Aspell, Lee Hayes and Pat Cooney for their company. Thank you for joining us. I'm Rory Jiwani. Good luck with your bets, and we'll see you again soon.
Relentless, remorseless, and pounded Cordon Star into submission.